Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you a very specific technique called masking techniques. This is a very simple and easy technique that you can do very easily. All you need is some sugar paper, some scrap paper, you need some soft pastels, these are chalk pastels, also called soft pastels, and preferably an image, but you can work from your imagination if you want to. What you have to do, you want to start working your way downwards, so from the top of the image to the bottom of the image. This way it helps keep your hands clean, it helps keep your surface clean. It also makes it easy because you're working on top of the background, so it helps if you start from the top and work downwards. So the first thing you want to do is to start with the sky. Now, because there's quite a lot of cloud in this sky, what I'd suggest is you work with the white first. So I'm just going to very quickly, I'm not going to spend too long on this because just to kind of give you an idea of how it works. So I'm just laying down some white colour and I'm using my fingers to sort of smudge it and smooth it and work it into the paper. Difficult thing about chalk pastels are that if you use your fingers too much, it can make it difficult to work over the top because of the oils in your skin can affect the paper. So now I'm just going to work some blue in as well to kind of fill out that blue space in the sky. I don't know how you can see that there, but just going to. Also, when you're working with landscapes, especially with the sky, you want to kind of work left to right, right to left. Avoid working up and down just because you kind of lose that sense of space in the sky, and also you can kind of see those directional colouring once you put it down. I also recommend putting a little bit of white into the sky just to help lighten it a little bit and to help sort of fill in these little white spaces of the paper that you can see showing up. Now, the horizon in this image comes to roughly about 2/3, which is generally where you want your horizon to be. What I recommend, so you can see it's going behind the mountains, I actually recommend you work a bit lower because you're going to put the mountains on top. So, got my sky down. So masking techniques is the idea of masking off sections or to kind of hide them. Now, the way we're going to do this with these mountains, now ordinarily what you would do is you would pencil or you would sketch out your mountains using the pastels, but with this technique, instead of drawing, you're actually going to tear them, which is a nice sort of, as I say, it's a very simple technique. So if you're not very confident with drawing mountains or those kind of shapes, this is very quick and easy. I'm just going to move my picture to one side. So, working from my image as a reference, I'm just going to tear very carefully. Now you can see, I'll start from this so it'll be a bit easier actually. So I'm literally going to follow the line of this sort of shape here. Now don't worry about being perfect because it will look nice regardless, but obviously take your time. I'm just doing it very quickly just to sort of speed things up a little bit. But yeah, you take your time, but again, don't worry about if it's not exactly the way it looks in the image. Okay, so what I'm left over with is this. Now, a quick explanation about positive and negative space. Now, positive space is the shape of the mountains. That's a positive space, a space of what we're actually concentrating on. But what we're going to be working with instead is what's called negative space. And the negative space is a space that's left behind. So the space sort of like this that's been cut out. And that's what we're going to be using to do our mountains. So now that you've got your negative space outline of your mountains and your sky, I'm going to lay this scrap paper, my outline, on top of the image. And for this you're going to be working downwards, again working down the page. So you want to make sure that you can see the background kind of underneath the tears. If you don't do that, you'll end up with a space in between, which won't look so nice. And just using some brown. I've got some shades of orange in this background in these mountains as well, some blue, some black, but just starting with the brown, just working my way down. Again, I'm doing this very quickly and simply, but you obviously can take your time with yours. Then when it comes to blending, again, I would recommend using a circular motion and keep your finger very carefully along that edge. You want to make sure you're not lifting it as you're rubbing it, otherwise you'll end up putting colour in places where you don't want it to be. So I'm very carefully smudging in that colour. Once I've got that initial colour, I might give a little bit of orange in there just to make it a bit lighter. I can see some shades of orange. Again, working down. You always want to make sure you're blending colours in. Never rely on just single shades of colour. I know things might look brown, but there are more colours within them. Just going back to the blue that I was using for the sky, I'm just going to work a little bit on that, some of those left hand sides, just to get a bit of shadow on those mountains on the left. Oops. Again, just be careful about lifting up the image as you're working. And I also use a little bit of black, just to get a little bit darker with some of that shadowing. With black, just be careful because black is very strong, and you want to be careful about using too much black in your images. But you know, this is a very rough image, so it's not going to be 100% perfect, but you'll just hopefully get an idea of what I'm doing. So once you've got your initial colouring down, again, just make sure you kind of bring that colour down and it's nice and straight. Just gently lift off, and you should hopefully have a nice crisp outline of the mountains. So just be careful about shaking off your excess dust. Now that I've got my mountains, I'm now going to work on the foreground. So I've got this area here where I've got these sort of, I guess, a little, maybe not hills, but maybe just some lumps of rocks and things here, and then I've got the actual desert itself. So again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my paper. I'm going to tear out the shape of these rocks here, and I'm going to lay that on top. So just going back to the paper, I'm just going to very quickly, very carefully tear out a shape, and then bring it down, and that will be alright. So I'm going to lay that, it's a little bit too high potentially, let me just fix that a little bit. Lay that on top of my background here. Let me just neaten that up a little bit. So I'm just neatening this up a little bit. This is the tricky bit, just getting things right. So I've got my little bit of hill. I'm going to pop that on top here, and then I'm going to work in again. I think this time I'm going to use a bit more orange, make this a bit more visible. Again, working your way downward, carefully kind of rubbing the colour in, and then working with some brown. And a little bit of black. Get a sense of that kind of in front. And then you can see that. And then all I'm going to do to finish off is just to get some, use the yellow and use the orange together to make the desert. So just working very loosely. And then my yellow. And lay down some some orange in the foreground. Maybe a touch of white just to make it a bit lighter in some areas. And I can also work in a few little details, like some little tufts of grass maybe that are again, you might want to use a straight edge for this if you want to give it a sense that it's sort of sitting in that desert, so maybe work upwards like that. Yeah, just a little bit more of a placement. Also helps to keep all of your little blades of grass on the same space, really. So it looks like they're all the same distance away. Maybe a touch of black at the bottom, I think, just to make them a little bit darker there in the shadows. Maybe just a few little specks of brown. Maybe a little bit of black as well, and a few little. So there you have your finished image. As I say, very quick, very simple, but quite effective. And you can get some really nice results very easily. But yeah, so have a little go and see what you can make.